Let's create our next increase stitch together just to make sure that you're comfortable creating them for the rest of the round. We are going to go over the same steps in the remaining 4 holes. In each of these 4 holes, you'll need to perform an increase stitch. At this point, some of you might already be getting the hang of it, and that's fantastic. However, when you are still learning to crochet, it's quite common to mistakenly insert your hook into the wrong hole, which can really affect your stitch count and your work. My suggestion is to continue following along a bit longer to ensure you are placing your hook in the right place. Now, to find where we need to insert our hook, look at your yarn looped around your hook. See how it traces back through the 2 loops of yarn. The first loop leads to a specific hole, and you will want to insert your hook into the hole immediately to the left of that. And it's not just any hole, it's the hole right below the next horizontal V's. As we have our last stitch marker in place, it should align with this marker. Now that you are becoming more comfortable with crocheting, we can move through the steps a bit faster. Slide the stitch marker aside and place your hook into the very hole where your stitch marker is. Next, yarn over and pull the yarn through only the first 2 loops on the hook. Once you have cleared these loops, move the hook to the left to secure your new loop. This leaves you with 2 loops on your hook, marking the midway point of a single crochet stitch. Now yarn over once more by gliding the hook under and behind the working yarn, and then pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. At this stage, you should have only 1 loop left on your hook, and it should roughly match the size of your hook's tip. Well done! You have successfully completed the first single crochet stitch, marking the first half of the increase stitch. To start the second single crochet stitch, your hook must be placed in precisely the same hole as the first stitch. Once again, take a look at the yarn on your hook and observe how it passes through the 2 loops of yarn. The first loop connects to a particular hole, and that hole should align with the one marked by our stitch marker. And this is where you should insert your hook next. You should have 3 strands of yarn on your hook. Now yarn over and pull the yarn through just 2 loops on your hook. As soon as you clear the 2 loops, shift your hook to secure the new loop on your hook. Verify that this loop is about the same size as your hook's tip. You're now halfway through the second single crochet stitch, and you are almost there. Yarn over one more time and pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. Once you have cleared these loops, secure your new loop on your hook. If you have reached this point and there is only 1 loop left on your hook, congratulations, you have completed your third increase stitch. Before we remove the stitch marker, let's do a quick stitch count. By this point, you should have a total of 6 stitches around the edge. Position your work so that you're looking at the rim, and let's start counting from the stitch indicated by the stitch marker. So this is stitch number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Remember not to count the loop on your hook as a stitch. Excellent. If you counted 6 stitches, you are on the right track, and you can go ahead and remove the stitch marker. It's no longer needed. Now, for the first time, we are going to tackle an increase without a stitch marker. But do not worry, I will guide you through this process step by step. First, take a look at the yarn on your hook and observe how it passes through two loops of yarn. The first loop traces back to a specific hole. That's the one that we just worked in. This means that we want to insert our hook into the hole immediately next to that one, but not just any hole, but the one that's directly below the next horizontal V's. So slide your hook under this horizontal V. We will start with a yarn over, pulling the yarn through the hole your hook just went into. This gives you two loops on your hook. Now make sure that your new loop is about the same size as the loop on your hook and is about the same size as the tip of your hook. Then you'll yarn over again and pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. Now you're left with just one loop on your hook, marking the halfway point of an increase stitch. So far, you have completed one single crochet stitch as part of the increase stitch. To finish the increase stitch, simply create another single crochet stitch in the same hole. To determine where to place your hook, take a look at the yarn on your hook. Observe how it passes through two loops of yarn and how the first loop leads back to a specific hole. And as we are doing an increase stitch, this is exactly where we want to insert our hook into. Now insert your hook from the front to the back of the piece. Now perform a yarn over and pull the yarn through. Continue with another yarn over and pull your yarn through the two loops on your hook. Congratulations, you have just completed the fourth increase stitch. At this point, you should have 8 stitches around the edge, beginning with the one marked by the orange stitch marker and ending with the one traced back into the loop. Now I'll leave you to complete the last 2 increase stitches by yourself, since we have already gone through some increase stitches together and you can always revisit the previous videos. You will know that you have reached end of the round when there is no more horizontal V's left to crochet into. Be sure not to crochet into the stitch marked by the stitch marker. So the final stitch of the round needs to be before you return to that orange stitch marker. Every time you complete a round, make a habit to count stitches around the edge to ensure you have the correct number. In the next video, I'll teach you how to determine the number of stitches you should have. But for now, just trust me if I say we need 12 stitches. Remember not to count the loop on your hook as a stitch.